I feel like security is something that is very reactionary. Um, you get a breach, then is when you start looking around for security solutions. You get hit, is when everybody panics, looking for help. So, what is the best way to secure our enterprises?
I'll take it away. I don't think there's any hard and fast rule. There are a multitude of really good technologies out there. But I think, and I'll say, probably the three of us have got the same opinion. You need to have technologies that integrate with each other. If you don't use technologies that integrate and can talk to each other and can give you visibility across your network, you're not going to be able to defend against the attacks that are coming currently. There is no one technology that is a silver bullet. There's nothing out there that on its own will protect. You have to do it in layers. You have to have those integrated technologies, and you have to be on top of your game. I think one of the other things that you also have to have, and we've spoken about it, is there needs to be proper education for people in the organization. One of the things that, if you think about it, your whole life you go to school, you write exams, you get tested, you do your A-levels, you go to a university or a technicon, you write more exams. You want to drive a motor car, you have to study a book, they show you all the road signs, you have to write a test. Who gave you a test when they gave you a computer? They just gave it to you and said, here you go, good luck. No test to see if you proficient or dangerous or malicious or any of that sort of stuff. They give you it, here you go, have a good time and produce some work. And I think maybe we should do that, do a lot more education. This is how dangerous this machine can be. This is where it can go to. This is how you need to keep it safe, Okay. So maybe something like that.
Well, yes, I do agree with him, but security has to be taken in a more holistic way. It has to be built up from the ground. Typically what you see, like you said, it's reactionary. Somebody wants to rush to market, somebody comes up with an app, somebody rushes to the cloud, and then after they're there, try to figure out how to fix the issue, as opposed to looking at it from the ground up. So I see a lot of adoption of new technology, ways of doing things, without actually trying to understand what the exposure is and how you can actually protect yourself against some of these risks. Like I explained to you a few days ago, I went to a bank and somebody from facilities has gotten a TV connected to the Wi-Fi. It's connected to their LAN, and the TV is hackable. But they haven't thought through what introducing that smart TV onto their network does to security.
I think for me it's fivefold, Barry. Honestly, I mean, first and foremost, it's about focus. I mean, every modern day CIO sits today with a list the length of my arm, if not my leg, of to-dos. It's about focus and applying the 80-20 principle. Pick those battles that you can win. Because I've worked with so many organizations, and the successful ones, what they said is, you know what, it's not going to take us 6 months. This is our program, it's going to take us 2 years. And focus on the battles that you can win. Secondly, linking on to what Robbie said here, is it's about consolidating and optimizing. Choose those platforms that integrate with one another, where you've got one single pane of glass where you can monitor and everything, which brings me to my third point, visibility. You cannot manage a problem that you can't visualize. You need to visibility. And then in the modern day ICT world, guys, I really encourage you to ask the tough questions to these vendors. Can their solution operate no matter where the data lives, where the user goes, whatever? Meaning, can they operate on-premise, virtual, software, and in the cloud, and hybrid of the four? because that is where the modern day world is going. I mean, you will never ever get a handle on the problem if you're not cognitive and conscious of the fact that, you know what, this world is moving digital all the way forward. And your solutions need to be cognizant of that dynamic.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is the issue now. All these guys here, I am sure they know that. I am very, very sure they know that. So why are we treating security the way we do it? Now this is to the crowd, to the audience. Why are we reactionary? Somebody volunteers, or I'm going to pick someone.
No pressure, guys.
Why?
Okay, hello, can you hear me? I think we are not experts in that area, so we'll deal with what we can see, and it's very hard to tell the board and senior management, I predict X and Y is going to happen. So can you put some funds aside? Because you can imagine even the teller in the branch, somebody saying, I predict somebody will steal X, Y, Z. So can we do something about that? You get it's not a definite science. It keeps changing. And by the time, in fact, it's easier for me to outsource it to somebody than I give him some kind of like a fixed fee, then that's his headache. So every time it happens, I tell him, that's your problem, sort it out. But for me, that's not my day job.
Okay. There's Paul there, and then there's Stephen. So that's you're not experts, and you don't have experts in the area, so you give it to Rob to manage it for you. Okay.
Okay, my comments from where I sit. Okay. I think there is the attitude that used to be, it can't happen to me. Only somebody else can get attacked. But I give you a short story. Something happened to us several months back, and I've always said it's the best thing that ever happened.
Was it WannaCry?
We were breached, and after that, the board listened. I've got 100% support of security right now. I mean, I can't be attacked, but whatever I'm
Post
asking.
WannaCry.
Yeah? Before that, yes. So I think things are changing. Guys are serious about it. It's just a question of the team pitching. They pitched. We listened. And another advice I would give, take it to another level. Even if you have a vendor supporting you, get somebody to audit the security consultant, just to find out, are these guys doing the things they should do, or they're doing it because of money? And that answers the expert angle. So on top of having a security consultant, I've had 2 audits, just to be sure. Serious audit, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with both gentlemen, especially the first gentleman. I think you're right. I'm CIO, but I'm not a security expert. I think the biggest problem is a budget. You know, it's like buying insurance in Kenya. You can't sell funeral insurance until it happens. Then the CFO wakes up. So I think that's the biggest challenge. And then of course you got your BAU. That's always more important because that's the revenue generating aspects. But to explain that you need 100 million to prevent a breach, without sort of articulating how much that is, you know, what's the loss, it's pretty difficult. And I think you can see that. I think things are changing now. We have the CBK guidelines, which are finally forcing banks to actually put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, there's another one, Emorian.
Thank you. I think the issue is actually culture. I think that's the first big issue where security is treated as an IT problem, and it's for the whole organization. Everybody needs that kind of awareness. Everybody needs to know what risk they pose to the system. The administrator of any database or any system, whether it's your DB, whether it's the network administrator, they all need to know what risk they have. Your cashier needs to know what risk he has in the system, what risk they pose as a security. And I think also, on top of the culture issue, budget is one, as you've mentioned. And I think we are looking in the wrong direction. The malicious attackers are not spending hundreds, they don't spend that much to build their tools. We spend a lot more to defend our tools, and I think we look for the wrong experts. No offense to you guys up there. No, you are experts, and that's as in it's justified. You are the market leaders, but you find the people you are going up against have day jobs which you won't believe. Guy goes from the post office, sits down, writes a piece of WannaCry, shares it off to someone else finishes the code for him. You have the world's biggest breach. There's more sharing between these people, and it's sharing willingly, anonymously, and it's not about are you certified to work in the market? Do you have these credentials? Do you have this? For them, it's just skill set. If the skill set is there, you do what you have to do.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Anybody else? Yeah, there's one here. You can.
Good afternoon. My view on security is ideally, as a country, I have a simple question. What level of security guard do we have outside our doors before you even look at computer systems? The person who did not go successfully through education is a person you put at the store, at your gate to stop the people. So you will always have the same analogy applied in business enterprises, that security is the last thing. As long as our systems are working, then you're not in a position to explain to the board and the people that make these big decisions why you need protection. For instance, in my case, I have had to push for 2 years to have a penetration test done. How many companies, how many people in the audience have run a penetration test before the last 1.5 years? By a show of hands. How many have run it in the last 1 year? So it becomes very difficult, first of all, to get a budget approved to explain why you need to let someone in intentionally hack into your systems to simply tell you there's a problem. One of the rudest shocks I got to find out in the last 6 months after running a pen test is that certain weaknesses already appear and exist in our infrastructure. For instance, the hashes used to save Microsoft passwords are stored in plain text in an operating system. So any hacker who hacks into your machine can simply download those hashes, run them against a decryptor, get your password, and they're directly through your system. If no one has ever told you that or guided you that you need to look out for such things, you will never know. So the expertise does not just need to lie within the people, but with the industry experts. They need to let us know these things. It's not like Microsoft will come out crying and telling you, by the way, this is a problem. I watched those guys in 10 seconds get all the user passwords. 10 straight seconds. It's not a problem with the user. We've done sensitization. We've done all these things. But even the infrastructure and the landscape in which you're running, such deficiencies already exist. And unless you get one of them telling you, oh, Forcepoint can check this out, you will never be in a position to tell that you already have this as a weak point.
Interesting. So, back there, yes, back there.
So what I'm taking from this is potentially we're actually bad salesmen.
Where are you? I can't see.
Potentially we're bad salesmen. Because maybe we should be doing things differently than Harry. You know, if I look at it, most organizations we deal with want a penetration test every 6 months as a minimum. Some of the guys do it quarterly because that's how serious they are about what's changed in their environment. As I said, and we've all said, IT changes quickly. It's one of the fastest changing landscapes. You know, there's, I think it's Boyle's law that says every 18 months everything doubles in size. You know, and so that's really quite crazy that IT changes that fast. Okay, and so So if you think about it, how quick we're changing, why aren't we doing that every 6 months, every quarterly? So maybe the way we should change it is to say, okay, well, I'm not going to charge you to do a penetration test because everyone gets nervous about a bill. What I'm going to do is when I find out what your problems are, I'm going to bill you per problem. Would people buy that?
Maybe.
Here's a question for you.
So wait. There was another one here before I come back there. Stephen.
No, actually, mine was more along the lines, some of the stuff you said, the culture, and how do you deal with the people aspect? Because I think for us, we're a global organization, so we have a lot of all the protection, but our challenges are the people on the inside. I mean, I don't need to send a file to Gmail. I can write down stuff on a piece of paper and work out with it. So how do you protect against that?
So it comes down to education. We said it. You have to educate people. How do you get culture in a business? How do you drive culture in a business to start with? Culture starts from the top. Starts from the very top. It's how you eat, sleep, dream, drive your business. Any business that started, Apple has a culture, Microsoft has a culture, Boston Consulting, they have cultures. The people they employ come with that culture. If you go to work at Boston Consulting, you know you're going to work 17 hours a day. Don't worry about your weekends. You'll have them in 10 years' time. That's the culture they drive. People go there, they want that opportunity. That's how they do it. So if you want to drive culture, it's got to come from the top down, but it's got to come from the very top. The top guy's got to say, I need to be eat, sleeping, and drinking exactly what I expect my staff to be.
Okay, so that's where the question is. Because you see, I listened to the gentleman there. His problem is he's not an expert. And it's true, he's not. Then there's an issue of convincing those guys up there about budget. So how can you guys help these people get their budgets and get their experts so that they can secure their enterprises?
One of the things we do is that we have what we call a security check. It's a free service, so we go to see a customer.
Did you guys know there's a free service? No?
It's called a security check. So typically what we do, we go to see anybody, and we start to look at actual attacks that have gone through your defenses. So it could take a day, it could take two weeks, it could take a week. It really depends. And we're able to give you a free report that says, look, this day, this time, this attack went through this defense, and this is the kind of issue you have with that. And this is a very detailed report on what has actually gone through. So with that report, we do have customers that then go to the top and say, look, this is the kind of stuff I have not been able to protect against. This is the risk. And if this actually succeeds, this is what the problem will be. And use that to justify budget.
I think, you know what, if you've been in the industry as long as me and Robbie and the guys, I mean, we've seen it all. And I think the fundamental mistake that we make is you go with this, I call it the FUD approach, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt approach. You go to the organization and you try to scare the living daylights out of them, and you're trying to put a gun against their head and say, buy all. I mean, that approach simply do not work. I mean, he's just mentioned the tool, what's that health checkup?
Security checkup.
Yeah, the security checkup. I mean, throughout industries, these things are available to help you build your business case. But that key phrase is the key in being successful. Build the business case and build the business case maturely. I mean, we've only seen recently that the security officer gets a C associated with the title. It's only recently that we invite the security officer into the boardroom. We haven't had that for many years. Now the board is willing to listen to information security officers. You know how often it is for us as vendors that we are the introducing party that brings ICT security, internal audit, risk committees, everything, and say, guys, can we sit together about this problem? We don't. There's this joint, and it's disjointed at the top, number one. They don't really have these real risk discussions in the boardroom up until recently. I think that's going to bring a completely different dynamic to this. And then secondly, approach these things as a business case. I mean, the amount of business cases that I've written in my life, I think it's really scary. Approach it as a business case. I mean, you cannot expect someone to depart of his money if you cannot clearly illustrate to him what his benefits is going to be. And frankly, and this is a controversial statement, that governance structure or that auditor jumping up and down is not going to help any. Not going to help any. If you cannot put a tangible monetary value to the benefit that you're going to get from a solution, a service, a managed service, or whatever the case might be, you stand a very good chance of that board sending you away and say, you know what, I'm rather going to upgrade to the latest VMware server or new infrastructure or whatever the case might be. And we can see it in the breadcrumbs of our legacy. The money that's been spent on security is infrastructure based. If you can put a tangible value, if there's a piece of tin, they tend to want to take out the money. If it's a software thing that brings intelligence and visibility and all the what's its name, it tends to be neglected.
Yeah, I think, Christo, I think you've got a good point there. The difference is there's far more ways to find tangible ways of doing it now. I mean, before, you know, it was very difficult to prove that. Now it's quite simple. Okay, well, if we get a WannaCry in and it gets onto the server, which is our main server, and people can't work, what do? What's the potential ransom? Well, you know, this is the cost. People can't work, there's a cost. You know, customers won't get their deliveries, there's a cost. Our name in the market goes down, there's a cost. The share price goes down. That's a reality. So these costs actually do this quite quickly. We did an audit at a customer now, and we showed them that we could get into their server that held the passwords for the safes that they have to go and unlock and collect the money from. Okay? So all you had to do was get there before them for that day. We could get into that server and we could grab the codes for that day. And they were like, how did you manage to do that? That's like, you know, you could steal 100 million. We said, do you think your guys will give it to us for a budget, for security? That's the reality. The penalty for them for being down for a day and not being able to service a bank on ATMs, their penalty for one day is 12 million from one bank. So there's tangible money right there. Give the guys the money so the systems work and they're secure, so that you don't get that penalty. Because I promise you, the board is going to cry that one day when that business doesn't work and they get dumped. And it won't be 12 million from the one bank. It'll be the rest of the banks that they service that also put the penalties on.
Okay, any question from the audience? Because I have a question. Okay, on the other side.
So this is to the security experts in the room. Why don't you use content to actually educate people and change the culture? I mean, some of those stories that you're saying, that you went and did an audit at a company and found out there are all these issues. People need to know these sorts of things, and maybe include something around, you know, some security tips like you could have, like things like, maybe the simplest one now is, you know, put an antivirus. But how about saying something like, you know, get your developers to look at the open web application security project and look at those vulnerabilities, for example. Or look at an open source tool like Zap and have that do for you a preliminary penetration test to tell you what your vulnerabilities are. That tool is free, you know, off the internet. So why not get people going on that sort of stuff? And then for the more serious and probably a more long-term strategy, you can convince them, okay, these are the sorts of things that you need.
Well, so if you have a look at it, I mean, we're heavily into education. Really, we spend a lot of time. We've had a very large bank in South Africa. In fact, I think all four of them have taken up various things. All four of the largest banks have spent, go around to all their branches and educate their staff. They've got it online as well. They test the staff. It's fun. It's cartoon based. There's prizes to be won. They've spent a massive amount of money on merchandise and prizes for their staff to win. They've got leaderboards as to who's achieving the highest results, who got the most answers, who's gotten stuck into this the fastest, and they're publishing it in their offices so that people can see, hey, this guy's serious, you know, and they're making it part of. If you want to go on our company incentive, if you qualify the company incentive trip at the end of the year, if you're not in that top section, you're not serious about our business, you're not going. So they really linked it in to a lot of other things. You might be the best performer, but you're not really part of that team trying to protect us as a whole. It's a very different way of doing it.
And I think your question extends slightly beyond that. I mean, yes, that is the user awareness, and we will, back to your question, never ever disregard the value that you get for getting the human workforce together. I think it extends slightly further. I mean, there is a stack. I mean, I subscribe to dark reading, to CSO online, and so forth. Myself and several of my peers are very active on social media, doing education around various different latest threats and so forth. So, absolutely, we're in an information age. The information is readily available. What I do want to extend, though, the security awareness program is going to address the user that's internal, and it's going to educate them and so forth. But if you think back, I had a slide up this morning called considering the quantum of intent. I mean, the user education or end user awareness program is not the ultimate fail-safe, because you still need to have the ability to monitor for that user whose credential has been compromised. You still need to have the ability for that user that already clicked on that malicious link. So all of a sudden, that hacker takes the face of that particular user. You still need to accommodate for the user that's a partner in your network, plug an unprotected device into the network. You still need to be able to think of those things. So that is why we strongly promote. And I think we're a bit ahead of ourselves as a vendor in this approach, but we strongly promote a human and data-centric approach. You need to focus on the behavior of the human and that entity, the actual entity sitting behind that machine on your network. And then you're gonna start being able to lock it down properly.
Thanks, Christo. Any other question on this side? Okay, so there's this elephant in the room. You guys know I interact with you and I interact with them. And one of the, in many discussions that I've had, a lot of this side of the divide actually tells me that the IT professionals in organizations, the CIOs, the head of IT, the IT directors, are actually the stumbling block in securing their enterprises. Because this is the reason. Don't kill me. Don't shoot me. Because the IT guys will always block the IT vendors from getting into the organization, because these guys will discover what kind of shit, sorry for that French, their networks are.
But Harry, is it not better to almost like have an amnesty?
I'm just reporting.
No, agreed. But I mean, I'll give you, the tax man gives you an amnesty. He says, I'm going to, for the next year and a half, if you've got an account overseas that you've had illegally, come and tell us, no penalties, put your name down.
That's a good one.
Maybe every company should say to the IT guys, I'll tell you what, you've got 6 months, amnesty. Doesn't matter how bad the crap is, get the guys in, come look, tell us what the news is, let's go forward. Let's have an amnesty.
Or you could
Anybody?
even- Or you could even have a case where somebody comes in, picks up what the issues are.
Yeah.
Somebody comes in, picks up what the issues are, gives you a chance or shows you how to improve, does the same thing over and over again, and by the time you report, you're in a much better state than if you buried your head in the
I
sand.
agree. But I want this side of the room to.
There's a question of the fact there.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Wanjao from Delhi MC. So the question that's been asked is actually, I mean, I can attest to this as a vendor. Quite very briefly, we have a tool that goes into a customer's environment. It's non-disruptive, actually does some measurement of some metrics. It is actually machine data only, not private data. But we actually receive massive resistance from organizations to run this free tool that ends up actually becoming a report. Now, in addition to this, I just want to add something here because I actually can relate to the CIOs, IT managers that are in the room. There's a real problem in terms of the organization cultures, some of which we in IT have actually perpetuated. Whenever there's a big investment to be done on infrastructure, right, in the organization, part of the business case is that many of us are actually putting to management, who's not IT-centric, right, is that this is the best of the breed and it's going to cover, it's going to solve every problem, right? True? Now, the same fantastic solution, we're asking the IT managers to go back and say, or the CIOs and the security specialists, let's say, in the organization, to go back to the management and say, oh, by the way, that investment for $500,000 we did last year, without going into too many details, there's a problem with it.
We need to upgrade it.
Yeah. You see,
there's no silver bullet.
You see, that's the thing. But that proposal that was done before was the magic bullet or the silver bullet. So here's what I personally have been able to see in terms of, from my perspective as a vendor, going into these kind of situations, is that at the end of the day, we're dealing with human beings. And human beings, the way they react to something is based on how they feel and what they're seeing around them. This day and time is very critical for the IT experts in this room to go back to the organizations, leveraging what's going on in the world. FBI is being hacked. Big corporations are being hacked. I mean, there's nobody who's immune. Regardless, there's no one who is immune. If you do not use this momentum to go back and say to your organization, hey, you know what? I want to be proactive and make sure that regardless of the fantastic solutions that we have or the big investments we did, yes, our ERPs are very fast now, nobody's complaining of downtime or slow, but there's a new facet, a threat that is being perpetuated across the world, and we need to be proactive and invest and make sure that we are protected. And you are taking the leadership, because the worst case, as is mentioned by the panelists here, worst case is that you as the custodian of this infrastructure are caught flat-footed and you're hacked and you're compromised. And you never attempted, you never brought this up as an issue, as an exposure. That is much worse, I guarantee you, than you actually taking the lead and bringing this to your organization as a key objective for that year, for that financial budget, and as part of your KPI. Make it your KPI. Right? That's
Interesting. Yeah. Next. Okay.